Right now, somewhere in your house, cold air is being pumped through vents you never think about. You flip a switch. You feel relief. It happens so fast you barely register it as a miracle at all. But for almost the entire history of your species, there was no switch to flip. There was only heat. Relentless, dangerous, sometimes deadly heat. So how did your ancestors survive summers without a single machine to save them? The real answer is far stranger than you think. Your body remembers something your mind has forgotten. Buried in your biology are the exact same cooling systems your ancestors used 100,000 years ago. You still sweat the way they did. You still crave shade the way they did. You still move slower in heat without ever deciding to. None of this is an accident. It is inherited engineering quietly running in the background of every hot afternoon of your life. Start with sweat itself. Humans are among the best sweating mammals on the planet. Most animals pant to cool down. Dogs do it. Big cats do it. Even our closest primate relatives rely far more on shade and stillness than on sweat. You do not. Your skin is covered in roughly 2 to 4 million sweat glands, an evolutionary feature so unusual that researchers studying human evolution consider it one of the reasons your ancestors could hunt in the heat of the day when other predators had to rest. Anthropologist Daniel Lieberman, who has spent decades studying the evolution of the human body, has argued that endurance in heat was not a side effect of human evolution. It was the point. Early humans could chase prey for hours under the sun, precisely because their bodies were built to release heat efficiently, while four-legged predators overheated and gave up, panting uselessly in the shade. Think about what that means. While lions rested, while hyenas retreated, your ancestors kept moving, not because they were faster, not because they were stronger, but because heat itself became a weapon they alone knew how to wield. But sweating alone was not enough. Ancient humans built their entire daily rhythm around avoiding peak heat. This is where the first real summer trick appears. If you look at hunter-gatherer societies studied in the 20th century, groups like the Hadza in Tanzania, a pattern shows up again and again. Activity spikes in early morning. Activity spikes again in early evening. In between, during the hottest hours, very little happens at all. People rest. They sit in shade. They wait. Children stop playing. Even conversation slows down. This is not laziness. It is thermoregulation. Your ancestors were not fighting the heat. They were negotiating with it. And that negotiation shaped something you still do without noticing. Have you ever felt a strange, heavy pull toward a nap in the early afternoon, even after a full night of sleep? That pull has a name. Researchers call it the post-lunch dip, and while modern explanations often point to blood sugar and digestion, sleep scientists studying circadian rhythms note that humans show a natural biological dip in alertness in the early afternoon regardless of what they ate. Some researchers, including those examining biphasic sleep patterns across pre-industrial societies, argue this dip is a leftover survival strategy. Rest when the sun is at its most dangerous. Move when it is not. You have felt this. Maybe today, maybe yesterday. That heaviness behind your eyes at 2 in the afternoon is not a modern flaw. It is an ancient instruction you were never taught to recognize. Shade was not just comfort, it was strategy. Ancient humans did not build houses first. They read landscapes, caves, rock overhangs, dense tree canopies. These were not just shelters from rain, they were heat shields. Excavations of early human sites in hot climates consistently show clustering near natural shade structures, especially near water sources, where evaporative cooling from nearby moisture made the air marginally less brutal. Your ancestors were not choosing these spots randomly. They were choosing them the way you choose to sit near a fan, except the stakes were survival, not comfort. Imagine walking for hours under an unforgiving sun. No sunglasses, no sunscreen, no bottled water. Every decision about where to stop, where to rest, where to sleep, was a decision about staying alive until nightfall. Water changed everything. Not just for drinking, for cooling. There is a reason nearly every ancient civilization built its earliest cities near rivers, lakes, or coastlines. Water is often taught as being about agriculture and trade. That is true. But it was also about survival on the hottest days of the year. Wet skin cools faster than dry skin. Wading, bathing, and even just staying near open water lowered the risk of heat illness in a way ancient humans understood instinctively. Long before anyone had a word for evaporative cooling, some archaeologists studying early river valley civilizations have noted that daily bathing rituals in regions like the ancient Indus Valley were not purely religious or hygienic. They served a second, quieter purpose. cooling the body during the hottest hours of the day, in a place where summer temperatures could become lethal without intervention. Clothing tells a similar story, and it is almost the opposite of what you might expect. You might assume less clothing meant staying cooler. Some hot climate cultures show the reverse. Loose, breathable, light-colored fabric was often preferred over bare skin, because it created a layer of moving air between the body and direct sunlight while still allowing sweat to evaporate. This principle shows up independently across multiple ancient hot climate societies, from desert nomads to equatorial farmers. It was not fashion, it was climate engineering, sewn by hand, tested by generations of trial and error where the wrong choice meant collapse. There is something almost poetic about this. Long before anyone understood convection or evaporation as scientific concepts, ancient people had already discovered their effects through pure observation. A robe that billowed slightly in the wind, a fabric that stayed cool to the touch. These were not accidents. They were data, collected one uncomfortable afternoon at a time and passed down as tradition. Now here is the part that reframes almost everything you have just heard. You assume ancient humans survived summer through discipline, toughness, endurance. But the deeper truth is the opposite. They survived by avoiding suffering whenever possible. They rested when rest was smart. They moved when movement was safe. They sought shade instead of enduring sun. They were not tougher than you. They were more responsive than you. This distinction matters more than it seems. Toughness implies resisting your body. Responsiveness implies listening to it. Your ancestors did not overpower the heat through willpower. They survived because they paid closer attention to their own bodies than you probably do today. And this is where the twist becomes personal. You live in a world that fights against every one of these ancient instincts. Air conditioning has made you far less likely to acclimate to heat naturally, a process called heat acclimatization, in which the body gradually becomes more efficient at sweating and regulating temperature through repeated moderate exposure. Populations without constant climate control often show measurably better heat tolerance over time, not because they are stronger, but because their bodies are allowed to practice. Think about what that word means. Practice. Your body was designed to get better at handling heat the more it experiences it in manageable doses. But if every hot moment is instantly erased by a thermostat, that practice never happens. The system your ancestors relied on sits unused, like a muscle that never gets exercised. Modern schedules ignore the afternoon dip your biology still expects. Offices do not pause at 2 in the afternoon. School bells do not ring softer during the hottest hour. Modern buildings often block airflow instead of encouraging it, sealed tight for efficiency, cutting off the natural cross breezes that once cooled entire homes for free. Modern clothing trends sometimes prioritize appearance over the loose, breathable design that kept ancient bodies alive, trading function for form in a way your ancestors would have found baffling, maybe even dangerous. You have inherited a finely tuned survival system, and in many ways, modern convenience has quietly disconnected you from it. This is not a call to abandon air conditioning or modern life. Nobody is asking you to sit in a cave through August. It is a reminder that your body still holds instructions written by heat itself. Instructions that predate language, predate agriculture, predate almost everything you consider modern civilization. When you feel sluggish in the afternoon sun, that is not weakness. When you crave shade before you even feel hot, that is not overreaction. When your body wants to move slower in extreme heat, that is not laziness. That is 100,000 years of inherited intelligence, quietly trying to protect you, the same way it protected every person who came before you. There is something almost humbling in that thought. Every time you instinctively step into shade, every time your pace slows without permission, every time your eyelids grow heavy in the early afternoon, you are not malfunctioning, you are remembering. Consider, too, how differently ancient humans experienced the passage of a single summer day compared to you. Morning was for movement, gathering, hunting, traveling while the air was still cool enough to allow real exertion. Midday became almost sacred in its stillness, a forced pause built directly into survival itself. Evening brought a second wave of activity, work resuming as the sun lowered and the danger of overheating faded. This rhythm was not written down anywhere. It did not need to be. It was etched into behavior through the simplest, harshest teacher imaginable. Consequence: those who ignored the rhythm suffered for it. Those who respected it thrived, and slowly, across countless generations, Respecting the rhythm became instinct rather than choice. Your ancestors did not defeat summer. They listened to it, every single day, in ways so old they never needed to think about them at all. So tonight, when you flip that switch and feel cool air rush over your skin, remember this. The relief you feel is new, but the need behind it is ancient, and somewhere underneath every convenience you rely on, your body is still running the same summer strategy it always has, patiently waiting, quietly ready, for the moment you finally listen to it again.